Yeah. Good. Hold on. No way. Good evening. Welcome to the March 18, 2025 voting meeting of the Exeter Township School Board. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Fike, could you take roll call, please?
Jason Mell,
Here.
Julia Schaefer,
Here.
Deborah Bloom,
Here.
Dr. Andrew Battler,
Here.
John Fiddler,
Here.
Dr. Ann Herring,
Present.
Timothy Morgan,
Here.
Travis Odom,
Here.
Allison Wilson. 8 present, 1 absent.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Fike. In addition to the 8 board members in attendance this evening, we were also joined at the board table by our solicitor, Sharon Montaigne, and members of the school district administration, including Dr. Christy Haller, superintendent, Mrs. Dawn Harris, assistant superintendent, Dr. Josh Hoyt, director of teaching and learning, Mrs. Diane Skornovaki, director of human resources, and Mr. Brian Fike, who serves as our business administrator and board secretary. We will not be amending tonight's agenda, and we're going to move on to superintendent's report with Dr. Haller.
Thank you, Mr. Mell. I'd just like to congratulate the members of the cast of The Little Mermaid, our high school play that ran last week, and I had the opportunity to go see it on Sunday. It was a wonderful production. The kids did an outstanding job. It's always nice to see our students participating in the arts and including the musicals and, of course, our art shows and then our sports and just seeing them outside of what they do day to day. So congratulations to all those who were involved in the play, and it was just a great production. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Haller. Moving on to public comments for agenda items. No one has signed up unless someone would like to come up and speak. No? Okay. Next is board meeting minutes. If there are no objections, we'll adopt a motion to approve meeting minutes from the February 4, 2025 special voting meeting and the committee of the whole meeting, as well as the February 18th board voting meeting. Hearing no objections, the minutes are approved. Treasurer's report and payment requests. If there are no objections, we'll adopt a motion to approve the February 2025 Treasurer's report and payment requests dated February 19, 2025 to March 18, 2025. Hearing no objections, the Treasurer's report and payment requests are approved. Moving on to committees, education. Mr. Fiddler, would you mind taking that?
Sure thing, Mr. Mell. There are 3 items on the agenda. First one is an enrollment report. No board action required. Are there any questions about the enrollment report? All right, the second item is field trips within the 60-mile radius. I believe there are some new ones on there from the last time. Yes, there are some new ones. Any questions about those? And finally is the consent agenda. It is recommended that the Board of School Directors approve the following Education Committee items. 2 field trips beyond the 60-mile radius, a list of conferences, and the purchase of a 6-year teacher-student license for junior high school grade 7 and 8 ELA teachers and students.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries.
And that concludes my report.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Fiddler. Personnel Committee with Dr. Hearing.
Thank you. It is recommended that the Board of School Directors approves or ratifies the following personnel items. Any items in bold have been added, changed since the committee of a whole meeting. 1, resignations. 2, retirements. 3, appointments. 4, change of status. 5, leave of absence. And 6, a list of course requests.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Okay, thank you, Dr. Hearing. Finance and Audit Committee with Mr. Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. Mill. First up on the agenda is our first draft of our 2026 budget presentation. Before I turn it over to Dr. Haller, Mr. Fike, I just want to remind our taxpayers of Exeter and Borough of St. Lawrence that we do start our budget planning the day after we pass our budget from the year before. A lot of work goes into that what we're presenting today is a first draft. It is our first look at it as well as a board and an opportunity for us to discuss. This isn't something that we are voting on, just an opportunity for us to look. As everybody's aware, we do need to pass the budget by, I believe it's June 30th. So, Dr. Haller?
Okay, so I'm going to be down here. Mr. Fike is going to be up there. And if we could bring up the budget presentation. And just a reminder to the community that they can follow along with the budget process on our website, that after this evening, there'll be a button that's added to the website where you can click to see the budget presentations. If you go on our website and you go to the departments and you click on business, the business department, you can also see the previous budgets and presentations that we've done, as well as a list of capital projects. So as Mr. Morgan said, this is the budget's first look. So moving on to the next slide. We wanted to add this slide just to remind our community of the extensive building projects that have been completed over the past 2 years. The district borrowed a little under $30 million to complete. The majority of it was major renovations and things to upgrade our heating and air conditioning systems. That work is essentially almost at completion with Quandel. However, we did have one really outstanding project that we had listed but wound up removing just because of the cost, and that was the senior high auditorium renovation project. That is still something that the board will need to think through and decide what to do. And as you may recall, part of that conversation for taking it out was essentially the cost, but also we knew that there was kind of in the original borrowing of the money, basically what we kind of deemed as what if money, and if that money came back, that would add money back into the capital projects for us to be able to utilize, as well as the fact that there was rebates that the district would be getting. And so knowing that, we wanted to see where we would be after these projects have been completed. Since that time, we have reviewed the senior high elevator, and we believe at this point that it is in need of replacement. If something would happen, if it would break, there's really no longer parts available for that. So this has now moved up as being a priority. It must be replaced at the cost of $1.1 million. And I'm going to have Brian talk to you a little bit about this. And again, this is not money that would be added to the budget for all of our viewers out there. This is money that the district has already borrowed that is in for capital projects, which this is would be a capital project and would not add to a tax increase, but does need to be a conversation.
And it seems like a hefty price tag, but the existing elevator in the high school meets ADA for the time it was built. But if we have to replace it or repair it, it has to meet current ADA, so it's not big enough. Legally, it's a good elevator, but the problem is there's no longer parts for it. Last time we had a repair, we had to get someone to manufacture the part, and it's just going to get worse and worse. So we're actually looking at replacing the elevator, putting it in another spot. So that's why the price tag is so high. But it is a very important project that has to be done sooner than later.
So, I'm sorry, go
I
ahead.
have a question. What is the elevator used for, and who uses it?
It's used for students with disabilities or someone that has a broken leg or that can't walk up and down steps. And if you remember the high school where it's at right now, it actually covers 3 floors, but I think it's 5 exits because of the different levels in the middle of the building, or in both sides there's ramps, but in the middle of the building you have steps going up on the second floor and on the third floor too. So it actually opens up on the one side and it also opens up on the other. The limitation, it's small, it can only hold a certain amount of people, it can hold a gurney, but that's about it.
Thank you.
The other thing is it cannot be expanded, because if you try to expand it to the current ADA requirements, you'd be cutting out classrooms. There's also a big utility trace right by it, so that you can't go on that side. You'd be taking out in the hallway or taking out classrooms, and it'd be more expensive to try to put it in place there than to move the elevator.
So where are you thinking about putting it?
Actually, in stairwell, I think it's H or K, it's outside the gymnasium. We've already checked with codes, and we have more stairwells than we need in the building, and
So
that's probably the best location to put it.
I think you mentioned prior, we lose that stairwell then,
We
correct?
lose a stairwell,
Okay.
but we have more than we need. We looked at putting on the outside of the building, but if we put on the outside of the building, we'd have to cut through classrooms and put in new hallways to be able
That
to
would be
hit for
a
each
lot more
floor.
than $1.1 million.
Yes. Plus, you'd be disrupting your classroom structures.
And I'm sorry, when was this one built?
The
How
original
long
from
have
the
we had-
school,
Yeah.
I don't know, was that building in the 70s or 80s?
Oh, it's the same elevator?
It's the same elevator, same
From the
shaft.
70s? Okay.
Yeah. That's why we can't get parts, they have to have them made.
What's going to go, after you take the elevator out,
Let's go seal it, maybe
Just
make
seal it?
closets. I don't have any plans to put floors in or anything else. It's not worth anything.
no fireman pole or slide? That'd be kind of cool.
That's up to you. That's up to you.
I'm sure we could do a climbing wall inside, but no.
So, and I just want to say, though, I know when we looked at the auditorium renovation, so that 3.3 million, that's not an all or nothing deal, though. We did have that broken out into different,
Oh,
We
yeah,
did.
Pieces that
that
we could-
was,
we could take
that
care
was
of.
the wish list, if you want to call it that.
Correct.
It included like a full screen in the back.
there was the screen backing and those sorts of things.
Yeah.
I mean, I know we have Mr. Garcia here that's in the back, and he was doing our sound system, did a great job at the Little Mermaid at the shows this past weekend, but I'm sure he has probably some opinions on the sound system needing an upgrade there in that auditorium, but there is definitely some things that I think
And we
we want to accomplish.
recognize that there is, and, I didn't realize that you were the sound person, but that's helpful to know. But we recognize that the high school auditorium definitely needs to have some upgrades because of the cost of the equipment that we're bringing in. That's been made clear to us. But our recommendation would be that if you would allow us to go back, look at the scope of that project again, see where we're at, what the cost would be now, and possibly look through some other options that we can bring back to you, knowing that the elevator it really does need to be done, and with permission for us to be able to move forward with that once we get the final cost of what that would be, and Brian would bring that to you.
Yeah, and I will probably talk about it a little bit next month on the elevator. But in May, there's state grants for infrastructure or building improvements, and that would probably be the only thing we qualify for, would be the ADA compliance for the elevator. So we'll be putting in for that, just like the asbestos abatement when we ripped up the floor in the cafeteria, or not the cafeteria, the auditorium, the junior high. That whole asbestos abatement was somewhere around $450,000. We got reimbursed for $240,000 of that through the state. So there's certain things that but they are competitive grants, but we'll be applying for.
Mr. Fike, what do you consider to be a healthy capital project balance? I mean, we talk often as a board with you about things happen that are unexpected, right? Albeit a cafeteria refrigerator or I think we're good on HVAC for a while, but we're talking about taking our capital balance down to 1.8. What do we need to be at?
Wait, actually, This is the capital borrowing that we're talking about, with the interest and not all the rebates, but some of the rebates. We'll actually have about 1.6 million left after this is the capital borrowing. What we're talking about right now is the money we borrowed for capital improvement, which we have to spend within 5 years and commit within 3 years. We're going on the third year. For the bondholders to not try to call back the bonds and make us pay them back early.
All right, so just so I understand, this is our capital borrowing. What is our balance right now in our capital fund account?
Capital fund, with the rebates I'm still waiting for, it will be about 1.6 million. Right now, it's about 1.1 million.
1.6, so we're
Right.
looking at somewhere around $3.5 million in capital that is available to us right now.
Right, but
This, I understand,
2.94
I understand has to be
spent,
used first.
or actually be committed within 3 years and spent within 5.
And just for the people viewing, this, as well as the capital fund balance, cannot be used to transfer into the general fund.
Correct. It was restricted monies.
Correct.
Especially the bond fund, you know, the capital improvement fund, if you'll call it, of the 1.6 million, that doesn't have to meet the 15-plus year lifespan rule, but I would fight you if you tried to buy something that was only worth 5 years.
Okay, Brian's getting aggressive. Okay. All right.
I would say you don't use that for short-term assets, yeah.
Okay, so if we can move, Joe, to the next slide, unless anybody has any other questions. Okay, moving right along. So just jumping into the state budget, this is something that we share with the board and the community, just to kind of keep everyone on track with what the budget process looks like. It is outlined by the state, and school districts are required to follow it, with the end goal of passing a budget by June 30th, which is also the requirement of the state. But more times than not, the state is late with passing their budget. So moving on to the next slide. We've shared this slide before, and we continue to believe that it's important for the board to be aware of and for our community to be aware of. This is the breakdown of what anticipated revenue sources look like for us. At the local level, which is our community who lives in Exeter and St. Lawrence, those are our taxpayers, they fund about approximately 65% of the school district's budget. The state comes in at 34%, and the federal government comes in at less than 1%. So the burden of this really does fall upon the local taxpayer.
So just a couple things with this. Now, when it comes to state funding, in the county or any district in the state, it's not equal.
That's correct.
So, I mean, if we're looking at, for example, Reading School District, I would think that we're going to see a flip-flop of the local and state, where majority of it is coming from the state, and you have a smaller portion coming from the local. I don't have those exact numbers, but that typically is what I think I've seen in the past.
That is very accurate, and it can be very frustrating for school districts like in Exeter, where even though, according to state lawmakers, there's the means to be able to fund education locally, but yet knowing our taxpayers and what's happening here, especially with the increase in taxes at the local level, and really honestly what's going on with the water, which is people's water bills are more than their school taxes, unbelievably, in some cases. That is something that we are very aware of, and it's a point of frustration for us. Unfortunately, the reality of the situation is that this is the way that schools are funded in the state of Pennsylvania.
Yeah, so kind of going back to what you said, it's difficult when, especially last year, when you continue to hear the news tout things from the state of unprecedented funding and those types of things, but really districts outside of, low-income districts or inner-city districts are not really seeing the large jumps in funding that
No.
are attributed to those news sources. The other thing, obviously, we've all seen in the news with the cuts in the Department of Education at the federal level. Would someone from administration, so my understanding is, really, most of the cuts that happened there were from the Federal Student Aid Office and the Office of Civil Rights. So I'm not getting any impression from any of the cuts of happening at the Department of Ed that that's going to affect any funding, like such as Title I grants. I'm assuming that, we have that portion coming to us. Is there any other financial aid that we have coming to us
Yeah. So at this.
from the federal government?
Yeah, so at this time, we don't believe that the money that we receive for students, as far as title grants, is going to be impacted. That's what we believe at this time.
Yeah.
That is under $1 million that we receive. We mostly use that to fund teaching positions to support students. Some of it goes to professional development and other services for some of our more at-risk students. The funding that we discussed today, as we were kind of putting some last-minute touches on this presentation and arguing where slides should go and how this makes sense, is we were talking more about how this will potentially impact our food services budget. And you may recall that the food services budget is approved by the board after this process because it's a separate fund. So Brian, if you could speak a little bit to that in our conversation today and what that could potentially mean.
Yeah, we probably receive twice the funding for food service than we do for a general fund from federal government. If that is cut back, the rates or what we have to charge the students for lunches and breakfast and everything else will just probably double. So that's where the impact we'll see.
And there's been no discussion as of now of the state coming in with subsidies or anything for that?
Well, the state, actually, this year, the state subsidied breakfast, but that
Right.
was a pass-through from the federal government through the state.
Okay,
But if that goes away, and then the commodities, which we get a lot of donated commodities, they call that, which is, cans of, fruit or vegetables, things like that, if that goes away, it could be a big impact on what we have to charge the students. Right now, since, it's pretty much federally funded, the food service,
yeah.
we have to also follow the federal guidelines on salt and sugars and everything like that. But if that goes away, we're going to have to figure out a way to be able to buy cheaper food or, to be able to feed kids, that they can actually afford.
Wait, can you tell me what the regular price is of a student meal now?
Actually, Courtney's here, she can,
Oh,
For senior high, we have
$340.
340.
$340 at the senior high? Okay,
What's the elementary?
$310 at the elementary. Okay, thank you.
So that is something that we're keeping our eye on, we're watching, and we will keep the board informed if that does start to impact us and next steps and recommendations as we're working with Courtney to determine how we should proceed.
But that's a totally separate budget, not funded by tax dollars.
Dr. Heller, last year when we talked about the budget, one of the things that you had emphasized is that on top of this, the state has a lot of mandates that the district is required to do. The cost of those mandates comes into the general budget fund as well, if I'm understanding that correctly. Do we have any idea of what that cost looks like on state-mandated funding? Because I think for our listeners, it's important to know that when we talk about things we can control and things we can't control, that goes into the things we can't control bucket.
I don't know that I could give you an exact number, but I can give you an example of a mandate that can add up and doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. School districts are required by law to advertise public meetings. They need to do it in a newspaper. How many people are reading newspapers? And with changes to the world with internet and websites and just social media, is that something that school districts really need to be doing, is putting advertisements in a local newspaper? And to be fair, as you go out more to the western part of the state, there's not even there's not even newspapers really. I mean, how are people even complying with that law? So Dr. Hackman at the IU, the executive director, who was always on top of this, trying to figure out ways to support school districts, especially with the mandates, she did put together a work group, and that group is going through the mandates book that Dr. Hackman and her team put together, which is now widely used across the state. And they're looking for mandates that we can bring to the legislators to say, hey, this mandate no longer makes sense and it's costing us money. Can you do something about it? And I know for a fact that the advertising is one of those mandates. We have positions in the district dedicated to state reporting. If we didn't have all these reports that we had to upload all the time and keep track of to the federal government and to the state, positions, benefits, those salaries, that's the biggest driver of your budget. And we don't get any support for that at all. Special ed, important, needed, we have to have it. Kids have the right to be with their peers. It's very costly to districts. It's an unfunded mandate. And when IDEA passed, the intent was that the federal government would be working to support that, give money to districts to support that, because again, kids should be with their peers. And the amount we receive less than $1 million from the federal government.
Can I add to that? I think it was 2 years ago, PASBO did an average. It's of all the state mandated training, it was taking up at least 16 hours of every individual in every school district, which is basically 2 full days of instruction. They're not in instruction or given towards the kids. And it's not reimbursed. We're paying the people to be there for that training, but it's not reimbursed to us. So.
Question, I guess for Brian, the next time we do this, are you going to do this once a month or this update?
I'm hoping sooner than that, but we'll see.
Oh, okay, well, whenever, if it's tomorrow. Could you prepare a list of these unfunded mandates?
I can give you a
with-
170-page booklet for that,
Yeah,
that the IU put
It's a
together.
booklet,
Okay.
It's that many.
What I'm
I
mostly
think,
interested, for example, I'm curious to know how much we are in fact spending on newspaper ads. Is it, I mean, it can't be $1 million.
About 6,000 a year, but.
6,000,
Well,
okay.
what's interesting is you have someone, a school district like Jersey Shore, that has to advertise their meetings in a newspaper, but the closest newspaper is Harrisburg, and no one in Jersey Shore area is,
Okay, well,
you know
I
what I
feel
mean?
badly for Jersey Shore, but I'm more concerned about Exeter.
Yeah, but I mean.
It would be helpful to see a line-by-line item for
Yeah.
each mandate and the annual cost that the state isn't funding that we are asking the taxpayers to pay for.
Yeah.
I think
I-
that would be instructive for the
Yeah.
public as well as for
I
the
think we could
board.
give that to you. It's a great idea, and other people have tried to quantify that as well, but there are so many. And so we could give you an idea in some broad strokes, like regarding positions and cost of trainings and things that we brought in. But to give you a list of put a number by every single mandate would probably be it would be impossible for us, because as Dawn said, we have a booklet that's about 176 pages, and every page probably has about 20 mandates on it.
All right, now we could probably also give you a list of required trainings we have to go through every 5 years, every 3 years, or every 1 year, because we have to track that and be able to tell the state that, you know, it's like right now, I think I have 120 minutes of training I have to do by the end of the month, because that was a 5-year training, which but there's
Right.
others, every couple of months I get notification that this training's due, this training's due, and this training's due.
All right, how about this then, the 15 costliest unfunded mandates, so that the public has a sense of, again, where their money is going. We don't need the ads if that's just 6,000 a year. We probably.
It all adds up. It's like I said, if
Yeah.
it's 2 full days for every employee, that adds up a
Okay,
lot.
yeah, that would be good.
Yeah.
So we could, the top 10, top 15, whatever, of the most expensive ones, so that we have an idea, and the
Right.
public has an idea.
And a lot of these trainings, they're worthwhile, but it's also taken away teaching time.
Right. Okay, thank you.
So going to the next slide, Joe. So this is currently, and again, this is anticipated expenditures and revenue. And for those of you who have been sitting on the board for a while or following the district and budgets over the years, you know that for years, the trend was that the district would develop a budget, they would review the budget, they would cut areas of the budget, but if they didn't want to raise taxes to a certain level, then they borrowed from the fund balance. That's no longer an option for this board because it was creating basically a structural deficit that when Brian was hired, he was asked by the board at that time to figure out a way to stop that from occurring. So your expenditures and your revenue and expenditures should need to meet. And so this is where we are right now, and you can see that they're not meeting. So there's a shortfall. So our anticipated expenditures for the next school year is over $89 million. And what we anticipate as far as revenue, that's 65% from the local taxpayer. As it stands right now, 34% anticipated from the state, and then, of course, the little bit that we get from the federal government. We are looking at $1.7 million and where we need to make that up. So going to the next slide. So this pie has not changed from over the years. As I said, the big piece that we have is we're in the people business. We serve children from ages 5 through 22. And we are looking at the majority of our budget as being salary and benefits. And that's costly. The rest of it breaks down to supplies, the professional services, the purchase property services, the property, other purchase services, our debt service. And you can see that what we have done, and again, for our community, if they would want to look at this and read the explanations of each of these categories, is we put an asterisk by every single one of them that has increased. And you'll notice that all of them have increased except for our debt service, because that we took care of that. It's not a variable amount that we pay. It's an allocated amount that Brian has built into the budget year after year. One of the things that Brian did a number of years ago that he took you through was a debt restructuring that brought down that debt service. That's also what allowed you to borrow the money to get done the large number of projects that needed to happen. So moving on to the next slide. So the budget drivers, as we said before, we have contract obligations that we must meet. We have inflation that everyone is dealing with, and state funding is not keeping pace with the inflation and the mandates that we're required to meet. One of the areas that I think all school superintendents and school boards are very interested in following or seeing some reform in is the cyber charter tuition. School districts have been talking about this for years, that it's been very unfair that the costs that school districts have to pay to cyber charter schools is what our cost is for students when they're not maintaining buildings. The cyber charter schools were finally, 5 cyber charter schools, the largest ones, were finally audited by the state of Pennsylvania, and we pulled just a part of a quote out of that report. And the auditor found in instances of cyber charter schools legally using taxpayer dollars on things like staff bonuses, gift cards, vehicle payments, and fuel stipends. That does not happen in public schools.
Yeah, and not to mention probably all the marketing materials that they use.
That's correct.
As well, to advertise themselves with taxpayer funds.
And just for clarity, we pay the transportation fees for those students.
These students are cyber charter students, so they're learning in their home.
Okay.
Yeah, we spend about a little bit over $2 million in cyber charters. I think we have a little bit less than 100 students. I think it's closer to 80. in cyber charter. We have over 100 in our own cyber academy. We do have 3 students in a brick and mortar charter, but that's
That's
they
not
have
part
brick
of
and
this
mortar.
audit.
Yeah. And the interesting thing about cyber charters is the tuition rate that the school district pays is your own tuition rate. So if there's a district that tuition rate's 20,000 and my district only pays 10,000, they take students from either one, but it seems like the advertising's always in the higher paying districts, you know. So if it costs the same to do every student, why shouldn't there be one rate for everyone instead of going after the higher paying districts and not advertising in the lower paying districts?
School districts, public schools go through audits yearly. We have to account for every dollar that we spend as we should, because it's the public's money.
What was the date of this Auditor General's report?
This just came out, and Joe, if you could click on where it says, please click here, for the community and for the board, we provided a link to the Auditor General and their release of what their findings are.
Thank you.
So, you're welcome. This was just completed. It made news throughout the state of Pennsylvania. And you may recall, we talked about this last year, that Governor Shapiro did put in to the budget that they wanted to put an $8,000 cap on cyber charter schools. That would save us, when we talked about it last year, approximately $1 million. That would be significant savings. It did not pass. What did wind up going through the budget is that they agreed on putting $100 million of funding that could be distributed to school districts to kind of offset that cost. That did go through last year, but that is not in the proposed budget for this coming year. So that $100 million is gone. So that's money that we are losing out to offset the cost of cyber charters tuition.
And our share of that 100 million would have been 174,000.
So is there any thought to potentially the board approving a resolution to send to our legislators saying that we're in support of this reform of cyber charter? Is that something that's worthwhile doing, or does the board feel?
Actually, I think you did one in 2017 or 18, but you could probably redo it.
I don't think it would hurt.
I think that advocacy efforts is as far as making your concerns known to Harrisburg is critically important. I don't think it can just be a school board action. My suggestion is that we make this well known to our community and have them call on our state legislators as well, that this is a concern and has a direct impact on our district and their taxes. And it's not anything that we have control over. And we have 6 school buildings to maintain. And that they don't have any structures to maintain, and that's what they're charging.
Yeah, I mean, it's, I know going out, Education Data Initiative, educationdata.org, they have some good financial figures out there, but they, you look at K through 12, and per pupil spending on average throughout the state is $21,441. So, and it's something we're all, struggling with buildings and building costs and everything. Obviously, yes, salaries and benefits take up the majority, but, with debt service from building maintenance, we have, that's 8% of the budget that you showed up there. In addition to all the other property things that we need around here, it is a significant portion of the budget.
And I know oftentimes we've talked about this with the board before, especially when we were going through our meetings at the various buildings to determine what the capital projects were going to be and trying to share that out with our community. A strategy that school districts often will resort to is they will cut out that money that they have set aside in the past for maintenance. And when you do that, then you're just kind of kicking the can down the road on maintenance of your buildings, and that's when these costs really add up. So one of the areas that was addressed when the debt service was restructured was Brian was very thoughtful and careful to look at what were regular maintenance costs and try to ensure that in future budgets that there was money set aside yearly to address that maintenance. Just like your house, buildings do need to be maintained. There's only so much that you can put off. And part of it is for student safety. We can't have carpets in disrepair or floors that are coming up because someone's going to trip and fall and get hurt. And that's our responsibility to make sure that we provide a safe learning environment for students. So that's not an area that in a budget that we would recommend to the board to cut because you do really have a responsibility to your community to ensure that your buildings are in good, safe working condition for the students we serve, students and staff.
This board and this administration in the past did just that, right? They, as you say, they kicked the can down the road. There
Yeah,
were maintenance that wasn't done, that was approved, either approved by this board or never brought to
Here.
the board's attention.
Yeah,
Previous boards.
yeah.
Well,
Because
when I say
the last
this,
3 years, we've included the maintenance of buildings, plus, we've had a capital projects review, but we've also put in, I think, what was the word you used? The maintenance,
Yeah.
capital maintenance, if you want to call it that, to repair pipes, to repair sinks, to replace carpeting, to repair floors. I mean, painting's very cheap, but, painting has to be done every couple of years, or, things have to be kept up to shape.
yeah, I meant by this, I mean, this board never changes, the members change.
Oh, yeah, school board,
But
yeah,
it's the
I'm
school
saying,
board,
but
whether
this
it's
board has
I'm on it or
agreed
not.
to,
Yeah.
before I got here, there was 12 years in a row that the
Yeah.
district was robbing the fund balance.
Yes, okay. Good.
And that has stopped, and this board has also looked at, let's fix these buildings.
I try to remind the public of that at every
Yeah.
opportunity, and to your
And
point,
this board
Kristen,
actually,
we're not going to do that anymore.
this board actually looked at every building in the guts, in the
Yeah.
basements, and the boiler rooms, and see what the actual problems were. 'Cause,
Well,
I mean,
we had 6 meetings,
Yep,
which only one member of the public attended, that was the editor of the Exeter Informant.
right.
Yeah.
And
Thank you.
again, it's, districts do that in order to control costs, but at some point, you're going to have to address the maintenance that was delayed. So Brian, when Brian and I review this, our recommendation is always going to be to the board to not take that out as a strategy, because you will incur more costs by doing that, which is what ultimately happened. We can go to the next slide. So budgetary considerations. We are recommending that we eliminate a teaching position through attrition. That's something that you should be looking at when you're looking at your enrollment numbers. And so that, right now, we have a bubble class at Jacksonville. We have 2 bubble classes, one in 3rd grade, one in 4th grade. And that is not going to be needed, that 3rd grade position, because that class is moving up to the 4th grade bubble. We have a retirement at Lorraine Elementary in 1st grade. So that gives us an opportunity to shift people around. So that person obviously will not be furloughed. We're eliminating a position through attrition. That saves the district approximately $138,000 a year. We've talked about in the past the elimination of the senior high librarian position. So we're putting that out to the board again for consideration. The board has talked about in the past about the elimination of the per capita collection fee. That would save the board $22,000 in fees, but it would be at a loss at that per capita tax, and that would be a $100,000 loss. So that will ultimately impact you in one way or another. We have the proposal, it comes up every year, about the firefighter tax credit. That's $26,000. The elimination this year of purchasing sports and band uniforms, which is $50,000. But again, you will still have to figure out a way to do that then the following year, because we do need to replace those uniforms. We've talked about in the past increasing activity fees. We did get that data from other school districts last year. We can put that out again. And increase the turf fees for our turf. We do have numbers for you that we will be sharing out. Our turf fees are approximately very close to other school districts. There's some school districts that don't rent their turf. There's other school districts that will rent it for a minimum of 2 hours. And there's a varying fee if you have lights or if you don't have lights. So if that's something the board would like to pursue, we'll have all that data compiled for you for your consideration for possible revenue.
Dr. Haller, I'm still learning, even after 5 years, I'm still learning my school district argot. What is a bubble class?
So we happen to have a very large class of of children, kindergartners, coming in to Jacksonwald a number of years ago. Jacksonwald tends to have 3 teachers per grade. It's been like that, but for whatever reason, that 3rd and 4th grade class required that we needed to have a 4th teacher. We felt very confident that once those classes went through, that we would no longer need that teacher. And again, because teachers leave or retire, we felt like we would be able to move that person around, and that's where we are. So that would be the position that we would be eliminating through attrition. You're welcome.
So not for today's discussion, but maybe for the next one, as we look at attrition of that position, we spoke a lot about transiency in the district, and just want to make sure that administration is not of a concern if we continue to see that transiency, if that extra teacher is going to be a need because of the unpredictability that you've spoke about.
So that's the difficulty with staffing when you start to see a transient population. It's something that's why we put the enrollment reports on for the board, but we're also currently tracking our kindergarten class. You may recall from our discussion over the year and last year that we have an unusually high number of kindergartners at Lorraine Elementary School. We typically run at Lorraine 4 classes per grade. And this year we had to have 5 kindergarten classes because we have 100 kindergarten students. That's typically what a Watton runs. They run between 100, 110 because they have 5 per grade. A Watton's kindergarten class this year was 84. It almost flip-flopped. Because the Lorraine first grade class was so small, we were able to pull a first grade teacher down to support the kindergarten, so therefore not incurring the cost of adding another teacher to the district because salaries and benefits are expensive. So we have been keeping our union as part of the conversation, letting them know that we're tracking enrollment, and as a result that potentially moving teachers around from grade level to grade level is a possibility, as well as potentially needing to move people to other buildings when warranted if one grade level is low but another grade level in another building is high, so we can ensure that we don't run into situations where we have 27 kindergartners in a class, that we have an appropriate number in the class, but we're not just mindlessly always replacing positions without any thought as to what enrollment looks like.
So I have a challenge to the math up here. For the per capita tax, we're saying it's 22,000. I believe in past conversations we said it was 25,000. But if I do the math, if I say $104,000 in income plus the 22,000, that gives us 126,000. The tax collectors take 20% of the per capita bill. 20% is 25,200. So can somebody help me understand how we're getting 22,000?
We get 126,000, but the delinquents is also included in that. They only get paid on the bills they get paid during that year. They don't
Okay,
get paid
so
on the
this is
delinquent
a-
taxes.
Their income is
The
not
total- but
completely.
If you take it away,
right.
no one's going to pay their the delinquents because you don't have
Okay.
it anymore.
That helps explain it, yeah.
Yeah,
So
so
I'm
it's-
just trying to understand
Yeah.
where the gap was in the money there between
Right.
the total amount bills.
Right.
Okay.
May I ask a question on the per capita? So who is, I guess, held responsible for ensuring that every adult in our township district is sent a per capita bill?
The tax collectors get reports from recent sales, from the realtors, from the apartment places. I know they send out letters to them because that's actually beneficial to them. They try
Well,
to
I
find
guess
out
my
the employees.
question is, I have two young adults living in my household, and they don't get a per capita bill. So we're missing out, I believe, on the younger population if we are going to continue with this.
Yeah, I'm
so-
not sure what the rule is from graduation or to when they get it, how long they have to.
Is that a district rule, or is that a state rule, or?
I'd have to look into that.
Something with the, tax collector that would be responsible for maintaining that.
Yeah.
The census data, if you look out there, at least the latest estimates, the 70, population around 25,585, close to 78% are adults. It's supposed to be 19,931 adults, but that does not seem like what we're collecting in per capita. So we're definitely, off by a few thousand there to begin with. And then just to talk about the bullet point there in terms of the shift, I roughly have it at about 9,500 homes in the township. Is that close to your number, Brian? In terms
I'm
of
not sure what the breakout is in multi-units because per capita also goes to the renters.
Okay. But basically, if you take that
Right.
$104,000 in income and divide it by the number of homes, you're essentially talking about close to $11 that would be added on, assuming that we're not cutting something to
Yeah.
make up for that difference, but moving that over to the property tax. You're talking about essentially $11 being added to the property tax. So we're saving $22,000 annually, in addition to, if we have to continue that revenue and we're not eliminating it by some other means of cutting, moving that over and, a typical or average household has at least two people in it, I would imagine that their taxes technically reduced if they're used to getting two $10 per capita bills, and now their property tax is, increasing by that amount of maybe about $11 to compensate for it. I continue to hear, I'm a very strong advocate for eliminating, I looked at the, through a right-to-know request to see what the latest information was in terms of at the borough, county, and at the township in terms of tax collection. And the minutes that I was provided from the township, at least in 2013, the supervisors at that time were talking about eliminating the per capita tax and then also wanting to speak to the school board at the time to eliminate their side of it. I don't know where those discussions went. Obviously, it didn't happen here, but their reasoning for getting rid of the per capita tax when they were discussing it was because of the fees. And that is my issue with it. We're constantly talking about targeting things that are non-instructional and don't have an impact on kids. Well, this is one of those areas where we can save money. We're talking over the span of 10 years, close to $250,000 in saving that just by simply eliminating that bill. And I feel like I've heard it loud and clear from the community that they don't want the per capita tax anymore. It's a nuisance, and it's a pain, and nobody likes it. And I don't blame them. I don't like it either. I don't like any taxes, but we got to pay some taxes. And that's kind of where I stand on it. To me, that just seems like a no-brainer. The other question I have is with the firefighter tax credit. Do we know where we are at with current volunteers.
Yeah, that estimate there is, I budget for the full amount if everyone would qualify.
Right.
We're only about 18,000 that were last year, people
Okay.
that put in applications.
Now, are we seeing that number drop or rise?
I think it was about the same.
It's about the same, okay. Yeah, I mean, 'cause the only reason I bring that up is the whole reason we give this incentive is to help promote volunteerism at the fire
Right.
department.
And I know there's some people that qualified, said, no, I'm not going to take it, you know, the rebate.
They don't want the rebate, yeah.
Right.
Okay.
You know, they're volunteering their time, they said.
Mr. Mel, I would just argue, though, that the fire tax credit is not only for an increase in volunteerism, but a retention in volunteerism.
You're correct,
So I
retention
don't-
and volunteerism.
Where I would question is if we saw it going up and then all of a sudden starting to drop as though they were losing volunteerism, which I'd want to understand. But if we're creating retention through the program,
Right.
and that's preventing us from going to a fully paid fire department within the township, which is, I believe, what Chief Jordan had explained to us at the time, then I believe that the retention is worth its while as well.
Yeah, I agree, and nobody wants a fully paid fire department because that cost is going to be a lot higher. My concern would be if we're seeing these volunteers drop, because what is the point of this then if it's not really retaining or helping with the volunteerism? So that's something I think we have to consider.
And I think that Chief Jordan has always been very willing to come out and give that report. So if that's something that's the will of the board, I would say that I'd be happy to reach out to Chief Jordan and ask him if he'd like to comment at a meeting, if you'd be okay with that, Mr. Mall.
I'm okay, I don't think we need it, but I'm okay with just seeing what those numbers are as we get them.
Then I'll request a report from him, and I'll report back at our next
Okay.
committee meeting with Township
Sounds
Liaison.
good. Thank you.
Dr. Haller, I have a quick question. Since this isn't the first time you've put up the senior high school librarian for elimination, can you explain why you keep bringing that up? Is this a position you feel isn't needed?
I think it's difficult to answer. You know, having been an elementary principal, the elementary and the AP at Rifton, they teach the classes. They have the kids for specials. At the junior high librarian teaches. At the high school, that's not really the role of the high school librarian. And when the board is concerned about tax increases and looking for us to eliminate positions, am I going to eliminate that position or a classroom teacher and then have 30 kids in a class? It's ultimately up to the board what you choose to do. Am I going to recommend that we eliminate a high school librarian, or am I going to recommend that we eliminate sports and band uniforms? That impacts so many kids. Like that's their thing. That's maybe what gets them coming to school and keeps their grades up so they can participate. Do I want to see us losing positions? Of course not. But if I have to put up a position and I know that position isn't teaching kids day in and day out, and the board is looking for cuts, then that's a position that I have to put up. We put up last year instrumental music, and that didn't go well. I mean, they teach, and we know that Exeter is a music school. It has a strong tradition of music, and they're teaching kids day in and day out. So no, do I want to see the high school librarian go? No, but for the reasons I just stated, that would be a position that we have to, always consider. Again, it's up to the board how you choose to direct us to go with cuts. But I do think it's hard to say to the community, we're eliminating your high school librarian, but we're going to keep the firefighter tax. Just saying as a member of the community, when there is staff that directly, and not that the firefighters don't, but I do think, we have to be thoughtful about that as to where we're spending the money and who you're spending the money on. And does Nancy Gajewski important to the high school? Yeah, kids go to the library. But again, she's not scheduled to teach classes like your biology or a math teacher.
So would it mean closing the library, or would it mean replacing it with a different position?
So school districts who have eliminated their librarians have filled it with an aide position where kids can go to check out books. So, that's something that you would need to consider, is that, or are we closing the library totally? I do believe that at some point, high school libraries have to change. And I believe that high school libraries do need to be modeled after what's happening at the college level. And those are not really books, those are digital resources. I do think that once we get to that place with a high school library, that having a full-time librarian is also very questionable. The reason why we brought it up twice now is because we have a high school English position open. And again, we don't want to furlough people. And so we could eliminate the high school librarian, but put that, do it through attrition because we have a position we can move her into. So again, I do think that there is conversation that is warranted around your high school library, but in order to go digital, that will be at a cost. And because you're changing completely what the blueprint of a library looks like, I think it, again, needs to be modeled out of what a college is doing, where their kids are doing podcasts, it's digital, that's the world that we're living in. And, but again, for the purposes of this budget right now, that's a position. I could certainly put back up your music positions at your 3, 4, and 5, 6 level, but we didn't even discuss that. No one wanted to even discuss that. And again, it directly impacts kids. So that's, certainly up to you.
Just to be clear, that's salary plus benefits, correct?
It's not exactly her salary and
But I'm
benefits.
saying
We
when
did the
that-
average.
That average is salary. I just,
Yes.
when the community sees it, I just want them to understand this is the total package to have that
Mhm.
position.
Yep, this is why your salary and benefits is the biggest part of your expenditures.
So dropping down to activity fees and turf fee increases, when will the board be able to see some figures or numbers that we could consider there?
Yep, so we have a spreadsheet already started, excuse
Okay.
me, that Tom Legath put together.
Okay.
Again, it ranges from, we don't rent, to we rent on a limited basis, or we may not charge at all, or it's very high. And in those cases, according to Tom, and knowing those ADs, the turfs that they have a high rental cost aren't being rented at all, because it's outpricing what people are willing to pay. But we'll have that all for you. And I can send it to you later this week, but we'll make it public at our next board meeting. And there are some districts that don't have activity fees either. And then I believe it was Fleetwood that had one that was $150. So, and ours is 100. And then for
Yeah.
junior high, it's 80.
And when we say turf fees, we're talking
Rentals.
building rentals,
Mhm.
auditoriums, the gyms. Our gyms are probably used 7 days a week,
Mhm.
Yeah.
And most of the time, it's our own student groups. We don't charge, but there are, our
Yeah.
water is used, our toilet paper is used. When we talk.
Are you suggesting
supplies.
putting in a quarter machine on the toilet paper,
Uh,
Mr. Fike?
I think he's thinking more about the flushing.
Mr. Mel,
Yes.
for the sake of saving the district time, I'd personally like to do a straw poll unless somebody is opposed to it. I am not interested in increasing fees to our recreational, our student recreation within Exeter or Borough of St. Lawrence Township. I think that that's a service that we currently provide for free to our local recreation teams. They're feeder teams to our school district. They pay taxes here. That has to still go on the backs of someone. We've never done that before. I think it's a great service that we provide our community, and I personally do not have any interest in seeing that changed. If we want to look at increasing fees for outside vendors that are interested in using our property for tournaments, things like that. But for actual things within our township or borough that our student recreation teams are using, I'm not interested in seeing a fee. So if anybody else is and you want to see the data, that's fine, but I can just tell you where I stand now on it.
Are we charging now for those groups? I thought I heard we're not.
Not for our internal class, was it A? I think it is.
So
And not youth either, correct?
Not used.
Correct.
you know,
I don't want the district to have to do extra work that we're already going to say we're not interested in. If nobody's interested in seeing that, there's no point in them putting that data up. I mean, I'd be interested in seeing increased fees for outside activities outside of our youth here, but
Sure.
I'm not interested in seeing us add
And
that.
we do have that.
I agree, Mr. Morgan. I don't agree, I don't want to see fees increase to our youth and other programs within inside the community.
Okay. Anyone feel opposed to that? Okay.
And
So I think
Are
that's-
you also saying that increases the participation fee, student activity fee?
Well, I think you were just talking about the turf fees, what you were referring to, correct?
I'm just talking about if youth baseball for Exeter, if youth football, if youth lacrosse, if youth basketball, if youth, whatever we're not charging
Yeah.
for our current youth within our district.
Yeah.
Everything else, I'm willing to look at. I'm willing to look at increased activity fees. I don't want the district to have to do work that you don't need to do if we already know what that decision is now.
Sure.
I just wanted to just put it out there because I think it's
Yeah.
an invaluable service that we give
No,
our
and
community.
I think a number of us have served on youth sports boards or as coaches, and I think we realize that the money is strapped and tight for those youth organizations, so I'm not exactly, I'm definitely not in favor of that either.
We'll just look at, get you the comparison of the activity fees charged by the districts and what we charge.
Yeah, so I think we're looking at activity fees, but I do think we're still talking about turf fees for outside people that want to rent the field, such
Right.
as
Class B,
the
Class C,
Buccaneers,
yeah.
I guess, when they come and do their thing.
Yeah, or
and-
private elite baseball tournaments, or lacrosse tournaments,
Right.
or
Or
soccer
soccer
tournaments.
clubs,
Does anyone feel differently? I don't want to obviously speak for anyone else on the board, but, okay.
And like I said, we already have that information that we can send out to you.
Thank you.
And the next slide? Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry, in kind of the same vein though, like we went round and round last year about activity fees. Are we still wanting to look at the increase of activity fees?
I personally think it's always good to look and see what the Mr. Fiddler is always big on this, and I always appreciate this, to look at what the market standard is in the county and see where we're at in relation to that. That would be my recommendation. I mean, that's what we generally do, at least to make an educated decision. That would be my thought. There's no harm in seeing it. We're not making a decision about it now.
Okay, we'll have that information.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Howell.
Yeah, no problem. So these are the scenarios. We have 3 scenarios for you. Scenario 1 is we don't eliminate any positions, we hire back for that one position that we are looking to eliminate through attrition. And so that takes you a 3.75% increase, which for the average taxpayer is $12.30 per month. If you choose to move forward with eliminating the per capita tax and not eliminating any positions, doing nothing else, maintaining the budget, you're looking at a 4% increase, which again, for the average taxpayer, is $13.12 per month. According to the Act 1 index, which you have already determined that you're not raising past that, it is 5.3%. Last year, we were at over 7%. Moving on to scenario number 2. Scenario number 2 is our recommendation of eliminating the one position through attrition. If you choose to go down that road, you're looking at a 3.5% increase, which again, $11.48 per month. If you eliminate the per capita tax, it takes you to roughly 3.75%.
And Dr. Haller, I just want to confirm, you did say this is administration's recommendation, is this scenario here?
Yes.
Okay.
We're recommending that you eliminate the position through attrition, that we do not hire back for it.
And the per capita, okay.
Okay, the next slide.
Can I ask a question real quick?
Yes.
So when you showed originally expenditures versus revenue, showed a 1.7 million shortfall. What was that inclusive of?
Without any tax increase.
Without any,
Without
With
any
any
tax
tax.
increase, Mr.
so you're
Fike
saying
said.
that 1.7% is equal to,
1.7 million.
1.7 million is equal to 3.25%?
Correct.
Or
Well, if we eliminate
3.75%, sorry.
positions.
So the 1.7 is equal to 3.75%. And can you confirm whether those revenues include our new tax base with the Reading Country Club?
Which is 90,000, I think, is what we're getting from that, right?
Include that, but that's not guaranteed, because I think there's 60 days once the numbers out there. But I'm assuming
Okay.
they're not going to deal.
And,
I'm interpreting for Mr. Fike right now, but he said it's not definite because of appeals potentially, or potential appeals, I shouldn't say they are, but yeah, you don't know.
and Mr. Morgan, that 1.7 is if we had hired back for all, this is not including any cuts. Like, that's if we maintain all the teaching positions.
Right, it's scenario one, option one, 3.75.
Correct.
Okay, I'm just writing it down. I just wanna make
Revenues
sure
and
I
expenditures,
understand.
so they
Right.
match, right?
Yep, just want to make sure I understand. Thank you.
Scenario number 3 is eliminating one position through attrition, and then the high school librarian. That takes you to 3.25, and it's a little over $10 a month. If you would eliminate the per capita tax, it jumps you back up to 3.5. So those are the 3 scenarios that we're currently working with. Now, as we say every time that we do a budget presentation, this is what you're seeing right now is built on assumptions right now with what we believe is happening at the state level. It is also based on what we're tracking with enrollment. We're still looking at potentially another position that we could potentially eliminate with the enrollment. Eventually, we believe that enrollment will circle back around, so at some point, the board will probably be hiring back teachers, and at that point, you'll have to incur that cost. But we don't, again, want to keep staff on the payroll if it is not needed. You have to be thoughtful about that. So we want to make sure that we're making good financial decisions for the district while also ensuring the quality of education. And so at times, that means eliminating positions, and at times that may mean adding positions. At this point, again, we're definitely recommending that we move forward with not filling the one position through attrition. And again, we're looking at a second position, and while also looking at enrollment and our special ed population, because that is based on caseloads. And so if we have a number of students who move in that we don't have the capacity to, as far as the caseload, you have to hire another teacher, and rightfully so. So that's all something that could impact the budget. But at this point, we believe that scenario number 2 is a sure thing with definitely eliminating the one teaching position.
So with the librarian position, now, obviously, we went over this last year. Have we looked at, or is the administration able to provide us with anything that tells us what services are lost to the students by eliminating that position?
Yep, and I already talked to Mr. Campbell, so if that's something that you would like us to pursue, we can do so. And then we would have to come up with a proposal and also work with the union as to what that would look like potentially for the library, because we would not have certified staff in that library.
Mr. Mel, I'd like more information on that.
Okay. Is any objections? Okay. Yeah, I think that would be good, just to understand what, what we would potentially, what the impact would be of doing something like that.
And again, we don't have the capacity right now to go digital, but I do strongly recommend that that's something that we start to look into, and that we look at just the idea of high school libraries and how we can change that up to be more in line with skills that students need as they move into college and the workforce. And that's collaborative spaces and digital resources.
And to go along the line of Mr. Fiddler, can you let us know what other schools, high schools are doing with the librarian position?
Sure.
Thank you.
The other thing, Dr. Haller, you said something about there's an English teacher leaving,
Yes, retiring.
retiring. So if we were to do this, would the librarian then move into that? Did I
Yes,
hear
she
you?
had
Okay.
been a high school English teacher.
Yeah, I remember. Okay, thanks.
So I know this is a little off topic, but it's an expenditure, right? So as we look at things like taking our library into the next century, whatever you want to call it, I've always been a big believer that we should understand what our 1, 3, 5, and 10-year plan is. It would be helpful to understand what the build-out for something like that is, and then what the recommendation would be on how you stage that out. I mean, obviously, you talk a lot about kicking the can. I'm a big believer of that. I don't want to find ourselves in a situation long after none of us are in these seats, in 8 years, 9 years, 10 years from now, where we're asking to put up 7 digits or more to replace that when we could be staging it over the next 5 years. So it would be helpful if we're talking about this, not even about the elimination of the position, but to understand where you want to take our library to in the future, that we understand how that build-out looks.
And thank you for that, because I actually already was down, I had an opportunity last May to visit Immaculata and saw what they had done with their library. They're completely digital, and that space is now used for collaboration. And in speaking to the staff there, one of the things that they talked about was that kids at the college level really weren't coming to that space because so many of the resources were already online. So they transformed that space to have it be more of a collaborative workspace and have it offered up to be a place where kids can go to work, have a writing center and a research center. And I do believe that our high schools should be mimicking some of that work, because the majority of the students in Exeter do go on to some type of post-secondary education, and that's what they're going to be seeing, and most colleges are moving that way. So we've already started to look at that resource, just kind of doing some preliminary research on that. And even for our students who are going right into the workforce, the resources are online. They're looking things up online. They're watching videos online. That's how a lot of that training occurs. And so I think it's important that we move forward with that. And again, podcasts and having a space for that. We don't have any of those things. So I agree with you. I do think we need to have a plan. I think it needs to be thought out. I think we need to look at some models and determine what we're going to do next, so we don't fall behind in that regard.
And with you guys starting your supported study hall, which obviously I'm a big proponent of, and understanding that, I mean, it seems like this is a space that in the future could potentially be used for that as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, we want kids to have places where they can gather and they can work together. Education is similar but not similar to just the private sector. And in the private sector, you have teams, you work with teams, you have to collaborate, you have to communicate. And those soft skills are oftentimes something that we're lacking in schools, and this would be a way to help to try and develop that. Did we do an excellent job? And I'm waiting for
This was the
more
most amazing budget presentation I've ever seen this month.
That, you know what, when we were creating it, that's what we thought, this is awesome. So, but we will obviously keep at it and continue to present you with, various options, and come back with the information that you requested regarding the position at the high school, the turf fees, and the activity fees.
No, thank you. In all seriousness, we do appreciate the administration's efforts, obviously, all the time, but especially now around this time when we're trying to look towards the budget and really hone in on what we can do.
All right, Mr. Mull, moving on. Before I do, again, I just want to extend my thanks to the administrators for putting this together. I know it takes a lot of work. I know it's not the last one we'll see. I'm sure if we asked you what keeps you up at night, this is one of the things that keeps you up. So I know it's one of your biggest projects on top of everything else you do, so thank you very much. Moving on, we have items for disposal. And I believe there were some things added to this, which is why it's been taken out of the consent agenda. It is recommended the Board of School Directors approve the disposal of junior high school math textbooks that are no longer used by math department.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Question.
Yes.
I asked a similar question last time. Have we looked at every possible option for these books? For example, could they use them at homeless shelters? Could they use them at the prison? Could they use them at places I'm not even thinking of? I know the last time there were books, I guess they were teachers' editions or workbooks or something that were just in such deplorable shape we had no other choice. But I see these math books. Are we sure that they couldn't be used somewhere?
It's very possible. We'd have to go through every one to make sure there's no student information in there. It would probably add an expense. But, we could probably look at that, or at least to the non-pubs or someone. But first, the board has to agree that they don't need them anymore before we can even consider donating them. But if you're going to donate, you got to make sure there's no student personal information in there, that they wrote something on a page or their name or, private information that they shouldn't have done. And that's where you get into the problem. That's why most of the time schools just have them recycled and shredded.
Right, there's that component, and then there's also the component that many of the resources now are dual in a sense that they're a hard copy and digital. So many of the things we'll say, like within the passage or the problem set, now refer to the online component here. And if you don't have that portion of it, you don't have the full package with that. But I mean, we can do that. I mean, the non-pubs that we really support are more we don't really have in our geographic region anymore. Berks Christian was our only one, but they don't exist anymore. And the ones that we support through Title are K to 4 only. But we can certainly check. But these are grade 7 and grade 8 math specific. And like I said, they kind of match up with their digital portion. But long story short, we'll see what we can do.
We would have to go out and call all these different places and ask them if they would want that. And I think recycling is important, reusing and recycling to reduce waste, but I don't know that would be the best use of Josh Hoyt's time to be calling all these places to see if they would want this resource, and then have someone going through, as Brian said, to ensure that there's nothing inappropriate that's written in there or student names, and have us going through page after page to do that.
Thank you. I asked the question, you've answered it. Appreciate it.
Although we could charge 10% shipping and handling when we send them. So we could find revenue in it.
George, 40% shipping.
I'm just joking.
Okay, any other discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries.
All right, next up is C, the Finance and Audit Committee consent agenda. I will be pulling out number 4. So as recommended, the Board of School Directors approves the following finance and audit items: 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, and 7.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries.
It is recommended the School Board of Directors approves the following finance and audit items. Number 4, it is recommended the Board of School Directors approve the 2025-2026 General Fund proposed operating budget for the Berks Career and Technology Center.
Second.
Mr. Fike, do we need a roll call for this?
All they
I'm
need
sorry, any discussion before we go to roll call?
Mr. Fike, I believe we need roll call.
Deja vu, sorry.
A second here.
Not that I'm aware of, no. Go for it. It's all, yes, and your mic is off, Mr. Fike, just so you know. Okay.
Okay. Dr. Andrea Battler,
Yes.
Deborah Bloom,
Yes.
John Fiddler,
Yes.
Dr. Ann Herring,
Yes.
Jason Mell,
Yes.
Timothy Morgan,
Yes.
Travis Odom,
Yes.
Julia Schaefer,
Yes.
Allison Wilson is absent. 8 yes. I'm sorry, 8 ayes.
Ayes. 8
Ayes, I'm
Okay.
sorry.
It's all right. I mean, it's a vowel. All right. 8 ayes, motion carries.
Mr. Mel, that concludes my report. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Morgan. We're going to move on to Facilities and Transportation Committee with Dr. Battler.
Thank you, Mr. Mel. It is recommended that the Board of School Directors approves the following facilities and transportation items. The cost for the Parks and Recreation Friday Summer Program field trips as attached.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
No discussion, I just have a question. I've looked at this and I don't see it. If I'm missing it, I apologize. Do we have a total for this, for all these bus trips? Is there a total to be had? I don't know, Andrea, if you have anything.
I think it was per bus because they don't know what the total participation is going to be yet.
Oh, yeah, they're still
I see.
taking,
Oh, it's just per bus. Got it.
okay.
Okay, well, I think I can do that. Maybe I can use those 7th or 8th grade math books. And
Yeah, there we go. I found a use for the math books.
I'll take one of them.
So, or is the township still enrolling children into the Parks and Rec program? Is that the case?
I believe so.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not
And it's
aware.
really
I'm not sure
Actually, I
myself.
think I was told too, they actually start the program. They're not sure how many really show up.
I
'Cause
see.
it's only for their Friday field trips.
Okay, all right. Any other discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries.
And that's all for facilities and transportation.
Thank you, Dr. Battler. Policy Committee with Mrs. Bloom.
It is recommended that the Board of School Directors approves the following policies. 3 for first reading, policy number 247, hazing, policy number 249, bullying, cyberbullying, and policy number 252, dating violence.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. All right, thank you, Mrs. Bloom. Moving on, Athletics and Extracurricular Activities Committee with Mr. Odom.
Thank you, Mr. Mel. Just from Mr. Lagath, spring sports are in full swing. I will also be attending a extracurricular meeting held by Gretchen Hess in the spring, sometime in May, to discuss any extracurricular positions that may need to be switched around. And then just the last thing I have, Exeter Boys Lacrosse starts tomorrow night against Dallastown.
Great, thank you, Mr. Odom. Exeter Community Education Foundation, Mrs. Schaefer.
Thank you, Mr. Mel. We are very excited to host our first ever Run to Soar 5K and Fun Run on Saturday, April 5th, 2025 at Trout Run. This race is to celebrate Mrs. Achenbach's who is a 4th grade teacher at Owatton Creek, making it to the Boston Marathon later in April. Thank you to our event sponsors for your generosity in supporting this event: Newcastle Lawn and Landscape, AKA The Fence Company, Fresh Frenchies, Let's Funeral Home, Bluestone Dental, B&B Hardscape Design and Masonry, Sophia Emmerich with Wisdom Wellness Massage. We are also excited to host our first Schmeck's Villa night on Sunday, April 27th, to celebrate education, community, and local business. Reservations are required and should be made via Schmeck's Villa directly. Please follow our event page on Facebook for up-to-date information. Congratulations to winners of our Winter Eagle Grant recipients: Danielle Hernandez at Lorraine, Brian Dresba at Rifton, Courtney Preston, Tracy Prout, and Zach Potter from the senior high school. We are excited to see the amazing things they'll do in their classroom with all of these grants. We're looking forward to our annual Food Truck Festival on Friday, May 16th at the senior high school from 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. and our 17th annual golf outing on Monday, August 4th at the Reading Country Club. Details for both events can be found on our website and Facebook page. That is all. Thank you, Mr. Mel.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Schaefer. Berks Career and Technology Center, Joint Operating Committee, and BCIU Board of Directors, Mr. Fiddler.
I have nothing beyond the notes that I sent around to the board. The next BCTC meeting is Wednesday of next week, and the next BCIU meeting is Thursday of this week. And that's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Fiddler. Legislative PSBA Liaison, Mrs. Schaefer.
Okay, thanks again, Mr. Mel. Sorry. All right. So just some updates from PSBA. Back on March 12th, they did send out an email to all of us and to all of other school board directors regarding their PSBA Cyber Charter Fund Reform campaign. That email started on March 12th. PSBA is focused on advocating for additional cyber charter funding reform as part of the final 2025-2026 state budget. As these negotiations get underway, there has never been a better opportunity to achieve fund reform, and your advocacy is critical. So you can go in. I did look at the letter that they are sending to our legislators, and I believe there is a way that we can kind of create this so it's more personalized for extra school districts. So I can circulate that out if anyone wants to see that, and maybe Ms. Breton can look at that so we can copy and paste it back in and send it out. Stole my thunder on that one, and also the indication of the USDA canceling the $1 billion in local school funding. So I'm glad you touched base on that on the budget presentation. In Harrisburg PD, they've reported that the educator workforce shortage is trending in the right direction, with 97 more instructional I-certificates in the 2023-2024 school year than the previous year. And since 2021-2022 school year, the department has been seeing a steady increase of the number of instructional certificates issued every year. So I think we are trending in the right direction as well. So I don't know if we're seeing that here, but I think it's good news for us. And that is all.
Thank you, Mrs. Schaefer. And Township Borough Liaison with Mr. Morgan.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mull. I only have one thing to report. Our SEED comprehensive plan continues to move forward. We had two public town hall meetings, if you will. The first one was at Daniel Boone Middle School. I wasn't able to attend. However, the second one we hosted. The district allowed us to host that at our new auditorium at the junior high school in Exeter. From what I hear from them and them doing these meetings in the past, we had a pretty fantastic turnout. Dr. Hall, I'd say that we had about 50 people there. It was a really good experience, I think, for us as a district. The county was there to discuss with residents from any of the 4 areas within the SEED program. I had an opportunity to speak on a couple things, as did Dr. Haller, and afterwards there was just time for some mingling, and there's a lot of people that just wanted to come up and grab our ears, and I thought it was a good use of our time. It was a good opportunity for us to hear from the community about a number of different events, and a great way for us to continue to educate not only the residents of the township and the borough, but also the county on some of the struggles that Dr. Heller and her team faces on a daily basis as it comes to housing, schools, capacity, and some of the struggles that we're dealing with day to day that a lot of people just don't know about unless you're part of the district, including myself, that I learn every day, even about the size of certain classrooms and how transiency and the building of homes can affect us or sometimes not affect us based on our predictions, based on not only the next 1 to 3 years, but on the next 5 to 10 years. So I don't know, Dr. Haller, if you have anything to add.
I was pleasantly surprised at how well attended it was. Not surprising was the fact that the majority of the people there were Exeter, and everyone was very lovely and did share their concerns. The biggest one, which has been expressed by the school district and the school board, continues to be the lack of the tax base. And as a result, with our presentation tonight, that falls upon our local taxpayers, and that is a concern. And so the community members who were there, both Tim and myself, expressed the need to encourage people, businesses to come here. It's no secret that other school districts, such as Tulpahawken, Schuylkill Valley, Hamburg, are not experiencing the issues that that we're having with tax increases because they have warehouses. However, when you bring in warehouses, that brings in income that offsets or stops you from having to have taxes at all, raise taxes at all. I believe Tulpehocken has been at a zero for a number of years, but it also adds a lot of tractor-trailer traffic. So that is a consideration for the community when you have that. So it was a good learning experience, and a number of our community members did come up and introduce themselves, and it was great to meet people in our community who are senior citizens and thank the school district for what we do and appreciation for what a good school district we have. So that was nice. So thank you.
Yeah, I'll just add, I think it's really important for the school district to have some kind of representation at these types of things, because we really have to advocate for ourselves when it comes to some of the struggles that we have here, because we know it best. And so I appreciate Dr. Haller and Mr. Morgan for attending, not just that public meeting, but also the ongoing meetings with that joint committee. I think it's really important that we have a voice in this as we continue looking towards the future of the district.
Yeah, I think I agree, and I think one of the things that's great about having Dr. Haller at these things is that it's not only advocacy for us, but it's an educational experience, right? Because it's really easy to take the budget and divide it by the students and figure out what it costs per student. It's also very easy to ask somebody what your average students per classroom is, but what we don't understand are the obligations that we have for some of our special education students and different things like that, and how that affects capacity of a classroom. So it's not only an educational experience for us, but things that the township and the borough and the county need to hear so they understand when they're planning their predictions, how it affects not only our district, but all the districts throughout the county.
Okay. Anything else, Mr. Morgan?
That's it. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
I just have a question
yes.
for Township. Do we have any updates on Happy Landings and the process of them cleaning or clearing?
I can, all the gym equipment's been removed, the foundation for the pavilion's been removed, they're bringing in dirt. We're waiting for the borough's engineer to tell us what the requirements are for the capping off of the sewer and water lines. That's what, I asked for a demolition permit. Their biggest concern was making sure the sewer lines and the water lines are capped off properly, so we're waiting for that. And we're also waiting for Med Ed to disconnect from the pole before we can demolish the bathrooms, because electric goes through there. So as a safety issue, we have to have it disconnected from the pole before we do that demolition. And also we need the specs for capping the water and sewer lines there.
When he says "we," that means the township. So,
I assume that.
Well,
That
I
means-
should say that from the borough,
Yeah.
but the township, they're
But
doing the
the-
work, but we're holding them off because we want to make sure it's done right. Since
But the
it'll
school-
ultimately be our responsibility as the property owner.
But the school district is not incurring the cost of this work. It is the township that they are taking on all this work and removing these things and working with us to ensure that it's returned back to the way it was. The only thing that will still be available to the community is the basketball courts will still be open, and again, there will not be any lighting there. And our tennis courts require a key, so if anyone in the community wants to use those tennis courts, they should contact the administration building to get a key. That is at a cost, because we do keep those courts locked because of maintaining them so that they're a safe playing surface for our students. And we will eventually, when this work is completed, have a gate that runs across, because it's not a public park anymore. It's township property that we happen to have now tennis courts and basketball courts on. So people won't be able to just drive down there and be there at night. If they're going down there at night, it's on foot. And the only people that will have access to that are the police. The police will have access with a key, and then township, or the school district and borough. So.
Yeah, our coaches will have access because they'll have to get down to the softball field. But, you know,
Do you have an anticipation date of when everything will be completed and a gate will be put up?
the township would love to tear it down now, but we.
You have to wait for all that, okay.
Yeah,
I just know
the
there's sports
requirements.
starting for spring down there, so
I mean,
They wouldn't close
they
anyone
pretty
off.
much got everything up to that point, so.
thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Morgan. Next will be public comment for non-agenda items. No one has signed up unless someone would like to come up and speak. Okay, we'll move on from that. Are there any board members that would like to be heard at this time?
Mr. Mull, I have one thing. I'm going to give my annual plug to our residents of Exeter and the Borough of St. Lawrence. For those that are listening or reporting, building a budget is not easy. These decisions are very difficult that the district and the board have to consider. None of us want to spend more money than we need to. We want to make sure that we provide the best student services that we can for this district, and we continue to grow the district and continue to become one of the better districts that people want to come into. Those decisions we will grapple with for the next several months. I do not speak on behalf of the whole board, but I do not make decisions based on social media posts, nor do I read those social media posts. If people have concerns, and I know that there are people that do, we deal with a lot of different demographics, and I certainly feel for every one of those people that have concerns. We are all available by email. We are all available at board meetings twice a month, and I encourage our residents to come out here and speak on behalf of themselves so that this way we can understand where your needs, where your wants, where your troubles are. So that is my annual plug, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Morgan. So they can reach you on Facebook Messenger then, if there's any issue?
They can try.
Okay, all right. Obviously kidding. Any other board members like to be heard? Okay. All right, our next meeting will be our Committee of the Whole meeting on Tuesday, April 8th at 6 p.m. If there are no objections, we'll adjourn the meeting. Hearing none, meeting is adjourned.